Hello everyone, my name is Beth Stanifor Seamster and I'm the Children's Ministry Coordinator at Whitewater Area Regional Ministry in Whitewater, Wisconsin. I hope you're having a wonderful day. It is Wednesday, October 21st, and I am filming the Wednesday Children's Message. I guess it's our family curriculum that we're doing this year. Anyways, as you know, our title is The Great Cloud of Witnesses. So every week this year, we're going to look at different people who loved God and who showed God's love to the world, knowing that when we do those two things, we make a difference. And certainly every witness that we have talked about so far and will talk about this year made a difference for whether it was one person or a group of people. They showcased God's love in a way that changed the world. And so as we learn about these people, we also are invited to think in our own lives about how we can be doing that same thing, how we can love God and in return love God's people. Well, today's witness is a man by the name of Jan Hus. Now that's, I know, a name that might sound a little unfamiliar to us. German influenced name. Jan was a reformer of the Catholic Church. He was a Catholic priest in the late early 1400s, and he critiqued the church, which means that he pointed out some practices that could be changed, and in doing so made some people angry, as that tends to happen. So let me tell you a little bit about him. First of all, this is a picture, so you can picture him. Okay, so this is Jan. And he was born around the year 1372. We don't know exactly, but he was born to a very, very poor family. And at a young age, he decided that he was going to join the priesthood. Now, people make a lot of different decisions about why they join the priesthood. But Jan even said very early on that he did it because he had grown up so poor and he wanted access to an education, and he felt that this would be the best way to get that. He wanted a way out of poverty. So his last name, Hus, is a shortened version of the name of his town, which I can't pronounce, but essentially it translates to goose. So we are led to believe that his family were probably goose farmers or had geese, and that people in that area did as well. Just a funny fact. So he lived in Bohemia. So Bohemia is not a country that exists today. It's been broken up. It's a region, I guess you'd say. But now we think of it as the Czech Republic. So there's a city called Prague, which is the capital of the Czech Republic. It would have been a major city in Jan Hus's time as well. And when he was alive, there was only the Catholic Church in Europe. So when he decided to become a priest, it was within the Catholic structure. So he went to the University of Prague and earned his undergraduate degree, so his Bachelor's of Arts, his Master's of Arts, and he was working towards a doctorate as well. He was ordained around the year 1400. But at this time, at the University of Prague, which would have been a big hub, a lot going on here, there were some different religious thoughts that were happening. And part of what was happening is that you had people who were native to the Czech Republic, and you had people who were coming in from outside to teach. And they were teaching some different things. And there was some competition between the teachers. There was some competition then between the students. Different ways of thinking, leading to basically, are you from here? Or do you have a nationalistic sense? Or are you looking a little bit farther out? All of these things. We still deal with things like that today, with that issue today. But this tension, he would have been right in the middle of it. And part of the religious landscape as well is that it wasn't just individual countries or regions. Europe was ruled over by what was called a Holy Roman Emperor. Okay, so this would have been, you would have had the Pope, who was the head of the church, who ruled the church, and then you would have had the Holy Roman Emperor, who kind of oversaw all of this land from a political perspective, and the two worked together. And so there was this tension. And what would often happen is if the church needed money, let's say that the Catholic Church needed money, they would tax the people. They would sell indulgences, which would be that if you paid money to the church, you'd get a special certificate saying that you would get extra forgiveness in the afterlife, essentially. So there were all these things going on, and in the end, what was happening is that the poor people, the people who were farmers, the people who were just barely making it, were suffering because they didn't have enough food, they didn't have money, they were being taxed heavily, and so many started speaking out against this, and Jan Hus was one of them. And as he turned to his studies and his study of the Bible, of Scripture, he started saying some things that others were saying, but he said them with a very loud voice. He said, it's not fair that people go to church, but the language is in a language that they don't speak. So could you imagine sitting through an entire church service and not understanding anything that the priest is saying? He said, that's not fair and that's not right. So when he was appointed to a church in Prague, it was Bethlehem Church, he began preaching in the native Czech language so that anyone who came could understand what was being said. He said it's not right that the Bible is only written in a language that the people don't read. He said the Bible needs to be taught, needs to be translated so that people can read it and everyone can have access to it. He went on to challenge other things as he looked at Scripture. He said Christ is the head of the church, not the Pope. And he said that the church is not just the priests who work within the church, but that the church is every believer on earth makes up the church. So these things, they challenged the church's power. And in doing so, he made some people angry, as I've said before. Now, this was all happening in the early 1400s. So in the year 1414, he'd been saying all these things, he'd been writing, he'd been angering people. He was invited by the Holy Roman Emperor to come to a special council. He said, come and talk to us and tell us your thoughts. Explain it more in detail so we can understand. So he goes to the Council of Constance in November of 1414, and he was promised that if he showed up, they would hear him out and he would be given safe passage. However, when he came, they immediately arrested him and threw him in a cell, and they tried to get him to recant, which meant they asked him to take back all the things that he had been saying and to change his tune, essentially, and he refused. And so on July 6th in 1415, they brought him publicly into a church, dressed in his priestly garments, and they asked him to recant, and he refused. And they stripped him of his clothes, meaning, they took away all of the clothes that would have marked him as a priest. And they took him out and they said that he was a heretic, which meant that he was saying things that were hurtful to God, that were against God. And they gave him one more chance to recant. He refused. And then they said that they were going to kill him. So they did what's called burning him at the stake. And as this was happening, the people around actually said that they could hear him reciting the Psalms. So he was turning to God even in that moment. So while his story ends in 1415, his voice was not silenced because the people who followed him continued on. Today, we know them as Moravians. If you've ever been to a church, you've heard of the Moravian Church, they trace their roots back to Jan Hus in the 1400s in the Czech Republic. And future reformers, so about 100 years later in Europe in the 1500s, you had a group of people come forward and say, hey, these things going on in the church, this isn't right. And they challenged it, and out of that, we got the Lutheran Church, the Presbyterian Church, the Episcopal Church, all these reformers who started questioning and asking, why can't it be different? But Jan Hus was really the first, and many of these people look back to Jan for inspiration and just for guidance. So we know that he influenced Martin Luther quite a bit and other reformers. Today, our craft or our activity, in your packet, if you go to the Google Doc and download it, there is a coloring page. Now, normally I don't use coloring pages as our activity. So I will invite you that you can do whatever you want with it. You can paint it, you can use glitter, sparkles, whatever. But the Moravian Church is known for having what they call the Moravian Star. It's a 26-pointed star. It's thought to represent the Star of Bethlehem. It's also a symbol of God. So I invite you this week as your activity to learn about Jan Hus, and then to decorate this star however you would like, and really think about how God is leading you to be a light in this world in the same way. With that, I wish you blessings. Have a wonderful week, and I look forward to the day that we can be together again.